So, FF7 Revelation is a thing. And I want to talk about a theory that I had formed over the last few days. It was actually something I formed, to be honest, literally the day after the reveal. It's something you might have already heard from maybe some other creators, because it has gotten brought up within the circles, because we literally, like, a lot of the FF7 creators, we were all together. We had dinner together at Summer Game Fest, which was, to me, probably the highlight of my trip. I literally, that legitimately was probably the most fun thing we did, that I had. To me, it was like, it was just fun to sit around having Mexican food and shooting the shit about FF7 together. And at that dinner, I told everybody my big crazy theory. Back when Revelation got shown off, right? Hamaguchi was doing interviews, and it was revealed that we would be getting the High Wind very early in the game. Initially, it was said that we were going to be getting it at the very start of the game, and we were all like, what the fuck? What the hell? Because then that threw all of what we expected out the window of how this game was going to start. That's what this theory is around, by the way, is the idea of how does FF7 Revelations actually begin? Because for years, we sort of imagined something along the lines of, well, we're probably going to go to Rocket Town, right? We're going to be in the little Bronco, and it's going to maybe crash land again. And we're going to end up in Rocket Town, and we'll sort of have like a grasslands experience there. We get Sid's moment for learn about his past there. Then we work our way maybe over to the mountain and get snowboarding, and we go up to the northern crater, and then we get that, you know, big climactic moment up there. That's how I think for a long time all of us sort of imagined it. But there were a few things that sort of stood out in my mind that made me sort of unsure about it. Why, if that was going to be the case, why did we fix the little Bronco at the end of Rebirth? Like, why have us fly away? Like, was that necessary? If that were the case, then I think it would probably make just as much sense to just have us walk to our next destination, right? Think about, like, why didn't we just, like, well, guys, we're gonna head out, team. Let's go. Maybe, well, did we just want that big epic, you know, cool shot where Aerith is watching the plane fly away? Maybe. But it's also sort of like, are we just gonna crash the little Bronco again? Didn't we just do that? Or so let's do it again. To be fair, that never happened in the FF7 OG. We never actually repaired the little Bronco. It became a boat, and then you left it behind. But they repaired it, and we flew away in it. So I was like, that's kind of interesting. And I always joked, I'm like, you know what? We just take this shit, and we're just going to fly it straight to the end. Straight to the end. And then they reveal that we're getting the High Wind near the start of the game. Initially, we thought it was the start of the game, right? That was the initial discussions, and that turned out to be not accurate. But at the time when we heard that, I remember Max throwing ideas at me like, oh, are we gonna like start in Junon, right? Where we wake up and Tifa has been captured, everyone's captured, and maybe everyone's forgotten everything that happened, right? So we spend time flashing back to the stuff that happened before we got there. And I remember he brought that up to me, and I actually literally said, I'm like, I don't like that. I'm like, I thought about it for a while, trying to piece together how that would work. And to me, that was just really messy. Like, it seemed really messy because one, up to this point, we've been generally pretty like going from this point in time to this point in time, aside from the prologue of Rebirth where we talked about a flashback, right? With Cloud telling his story. But that was also, it's also so disconnected from the story and everything that it doesn't necessarily feel like it is a something that is immediately followed by where we were, right? What I mean is, if we ended up having a story where we essentially start the game in one place, do a bunch of gameplay, and then go back in time in our heads, does that mean then all of the gear and stuff that I got in the future would then go into the past? Like, or would I reset and be weaker because of that? And then you might be like, well, Nico, it's a fucking video game. But that's what I mean. That's the questions you have to start asking yourself. The suspension of disbelief has to start happening. It becomes messy. It starts to become messy is what I'm trying to say. It's like, okay, yeah, like that's one way you could maybe go about telling the story. But I thought about that for a while, and I'm like, I cannot think of a scenario where that feels right. And to me, like, based on Hamaguchi and everyone, they all seem like they're like, we know exactly what we want to do with this. And it like, they make it sound like it makes the most sense in the world, right? And I'm like, this just seems, I mean, maybe there's a way to do this without it, like the story falling apart or have it feeling really confusing. Because it also, I think, would also lead to potentially a very confusing narrative if we're constantly hopping back and forth between like we're at this point now, we're hopping back to this. It'd be a little odd. So that night, funny enough, as I was getting ready to go to sleep, this is the night after the reveal, after we had this talk, right? I watched the trailers again and I noticed something. I noticed something very interesting. And I went, oh my God. I think I figured it out. I think I know how this game's gonna start. Holy shit. I got up the next day and I was getting ready. I'm like, Max, listen. I've got it. I know how this shit's gonna start. He goes, hey, before you say that, just so you know, they came back. They told us that what they said before about the story starting with the high wind wasn't right. I went, it isn't? He's like, yeah, no, it turns out we were not getting the high wind for like at least 6 hours. So all of our theories are out the window. And I went, oh my God. I'm even more right than I was before. Let's go. I was like, Max, sit the fuck down, bitch. I have to tell you something. Because everyone I've told this theory to, I have convinced now that this is basically how the game is going to start. And I think at this point, we're starting to a point where we're almost being like told this is likely how it's going to happen. FS7 Revelation is very likely going to begin with us going to the Northern Crater. Just right at the start. No snowboarding, no Icicle Inn, no climbing a mountain, maybe a little bit of climbing. But we're literally going to start at the Northern Crater. And I first thought about this. I considered this possibility. And I first was like, that sounds kind of insane. Because as anyone who has played the original FS7 will tell you, the point where you go to the Northern Crater is almost like a climax, right? It's one of the climaxes. I'd say there's a few major climaxes in the story, right? One is Aerith's death. The other is the visit to the Northern Crater, the first time. Another is an awakening scene with Cloud. And then finally, the end of the game. Those are some of the big climactic moments. And it felt like one of those things of like, that seems like a point where we would essentially have things be good for a little bit at the start of Revelation before things go bad. Because after that point in Northern Crater is when Meteor shows up, right? And oh golly gee, we all about to demon die today. So it seemed unlikely that they would just have right off the bat that like, we're gonna fucking go there and then Meteor's gonna show up. But then I sat and thought about it and I realized with the game, the way this is structured, right? Because we were all so weirded out by the fact that Rebirth ended at Aerith's death. That was where they decided to end that game. We all thought it was going to be Northern Crater because that just seems like the place that made the most sense, because it would be essentially the game ending at us at our lowest point. But instead we're going to do it Aerith's death. What? So where does that mean? We're going to start snowboarding? And then, like that was always a weird pacing thing of the OG game. We're going to go to a fucking mountain and fucking, yeah, let's go snowboarding, bitch. Woo! Like, it didn't really make any sense. So what if instead they just fly there? And it's the start. And instead of it being a midpoint climax, instead it becomes the inciting incident for the entire game. And suddenly my mind expanded and I went, oh shit. Oh shit, that actually could be, that could work. Like really good. We all imagine that Cloud, right? Fucked up in the head, goofy Cloud who thinks that his girlfriend is still alive was going to be a large chunk of the next game. I think we're going to be losing Cloud in the first 6 hours of the game. And that is one thing that is very interesting, right? If they decide to go about essentially doing it this way. assuming that things play out the same, and hey, maybe they won't. We don't know. We don't know. But if things follow the way they were in the original, when you go to the Northern Crater for the first time, that's when Cloud essentially learns a shocking truth, right? A truth that he doesn't fully understand, but he gives the black materia to a crystallized Sephiroth who's basically been stuck in the Northern Crater, and then he disappears. And the rest of the team get kidnapped by Shinra and are imprisoned at Junon. So it would mean that Cloud would essentially vanish with us having played very little of him in this game. And I was like, would they do that? Because I feel like there has to be a feeling of us losing Cloud, right? If he goes away so early, do we still feel the impact of him being gone? But I brought this up. Subtext was the one I believe who said this to me. He does say, he told me, he's like, well, technically, yeah, we wouldn't maybe have played him as long in this game, but we have technically been with him for 2 games now. It's true. We have technically been with him for 2 games. I think part of the reason why I'm like about that idea, I'm sort of like has me interested, is that I've always imagined when Cloud realizes who he really is, that how he fights was probably going to change dramatically. Like, I think he's not going to fight the same way that he did previously, that we've basically been fighting as throughout these last 2 games. I feel like his style will change in accordance to him understanding who he really is. You know, that's what I've always thought. You'd be insane to play this game and not the first 2. Yeah, it's true. It would be interesting to see someone who actually did that. It's like, I played the 3rd game before the other ones. That would be interesting. That'd be a choice. When you think about it that way, like, it almost kind of makes some sense. And here's the thing. Before you're like, Nico, you're talking out your ass. Like, there's no evidence of anything in these trailers to suggest that that's where we would be, right? Because when we're seeing these trailers for the first time, we're all looking at this thinking, oh, wow, they're actually showing gameplay from like really far into the game, right? We figured that the midpoint was probably going to be where we go to the Northern Crater. Bitch, I think they're literally showing us the first few hours of the game. That's everything we're seeing is actually the opening hours of the game. And here's the thing that got me. Here was the scene. This is actually what really led me to forming this theory to begin with. Was actually a scene in one of the trailers that I thought was weird, but I didn't know why I thought it was weird. And I'll show you. I noticed it and I didn't understand why it kind of weirded me out. Here we go. They talk about Vincent and Sid's gameplay here. Okay, first off, notice where they are right here, right? Clearly, the way this looks and the way you're seeing this, they are at the Northern Crater, right? This is it. We're at the Northern Crater. They're about to go down there. I don't know where Vincent is in this shot, by the way. It was this.
The Leaping Lancer, the Dashing Dragoon, the one and only Sid Highwind.
Sid Highwind.
That scene right there, when I first saw that, I thought was weird. I didn't know why I thought it was weird, but somewhere in the back of my head, I picked up something and I was like, huh. And then I went back and watched it again. And it finally hit me why I thought it was weird. This part here sounds a lot like Sid is basically introducing himself before he's about to join the party for the first time. Why would he be doing that at the Northern fucking Crater if this is like the midpoint climax of the game? Like, what? I wouldn't be doing that of how far we are into this fucking game. Like, huh? That doesn't make any sense. Why would we? Is like, this bitch is gonna be like in our party at the start. It's not just gonna be like, well, guys, I'm gonna join you now. And you might be like, well, maybe he's just saying that here. It's like, no, man. Like, I can already see what happened before this moment. Cloud and team are like, all right, we're going down to Northern Crater. Sid is like, I'll be joining you this time. It's like, what? You can fight, old man? Do I fight? Well, let me tell you what.
The Leaping Lancer, the Dashing Dragoon, the one and only Sid Highwind.
He tells you that. He's like, oh, I'm more than that. I'm more than a fighter, bitch. And where is this motherfucker? He's at the Northern Crater. He's at the Northern Crater. Sid, this is where we get Sid joining our team and actually fighting with us. So that suggests to me, though, this shit's fucking early. This shit's super early. This is where we get introduced to Sid as a character we use in fights. By the way, you might also be wondering, why is Sid... Also realize something else. Why the fuck is Sid joining us to fight now? Why didn't he fight with us earlier? And it finally makes sense now of why they added a certain plot point that was not in the original FF7. You guys might remember in FF7 Rebirth, Sid, when we meet him, realizes that he knew Aerith's mom, Afalna. And then he learns that she's dead, and he goes, well, I want to help you, you know? And we're all like, that's weird. That's like new, huh? Why? Right here. This is exactly, legit, this is the exact reason that plot point was made. They want to give a reason for why Sid now chooses to fight with us and why he didn't before. It is because Aerith is dead. Now he has a vested interest in fighting alongside us. He's not just our pilot anymore. No, he's going to be joining us for the long haul. The death to him is personal. So now that she is dead, he's going to be fighting with us. So that's exactly why they did that. That's why they wrote that scene in there, and why Sid is also seemingly a bit different than he was in the OG. But again, this scene here means that we're like, if it was with the old scenario, what we imagine, it'd be like, what, Sid's not joining us till way later? I mean, it's like, again, maybe this scene's not that, but no, man. It just makes too much sense. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the game will necessarily immediately start with us at the Northern Crater. I foresee a few different potential scenarios of what we might get here. One, we could definitely have like a weirdo thing, right? Like how in Rebirth, how we start with Zack. I definitely could see us getting some weird shit. Whether we start with Zack, or maybe we get like a young Sephiroth thing, or maybe we play as Cloud fighting Sephiroth and Advent Children, right? Some crazy shit like that. That acts as the actual tutorial for the game. It could happen. It could happen. But here's how I actually foresee this next part happening. Either we basically, I shit you not, we get on that fucking plane at the end of Rebirth, and then we just literally fly our asses. The thing that I joked about in the last game, we actually do just take the fucking plane and fly our asses straight to the Northern Crater. We're like, wow, it was just that fucking easy, and just go straight to the final dungeon. We just go right there, and then we either crash land, or we like jump out and parachute. There is a scene in here somewhere too. I think it might be at the end here, where you see the party standing around on the mountainside with parachutes around them. There it is. Yeah, might be this. Though to be honest, this could be later, right? Because you see, we're out here. Also, Vincent's here, by the way, and Vincent wasn't when we saw him in the Northern Crater scene. So like, I don't know where he would have gone. So this could be like literally after we bailed, or this could be way, way later in the game, because your question might be then, wait a minute, Nico, if we're going out here and doing this, then what the fuck about Icicle Inn or all the snowboarding and all that shit? What the fuck? They're just moving it. You gotta remember, we don't go to the Northern Crater one time. We go to it twice. One at that point, and then again for the final boss. I think they move it to the end. I think instead of just flying into the Northern Crater for the end game, we're gonna have to run up there. And that's when snowboarding gets introduced. And that's when we go to the Icicle Inn. And that's when all that happens. And the funny thing is, pacing wise, that's actually so much better than the original. I'm not even kidding you, dude. It was so jarring when Aerith dies in the OG, and then you go like a few screens up, and now we're fucking snowboarding in this goofy minigame. It's like, yeah, I miss Aerith so much, dude. 360, bitch, whoa! It's like, it was always a weird thing about the original game. There was like we all were just like, I don't know how they're gonna go around this. And the way they do is they just like, we're just gonna move it to way later. I believe that is what is happening. And the funny thing is, you know what actually allows this to happen? Plot ghosts are dead. That's what's so funny. Like, as much as we felt like the plot ghosts haven't really like meant much of anything, it actually sort of has, because it's already let us essentially retell the story and reshuffle plot events in different ways. It kind of actually has. outside of remake, we've actually had the most shakeup in terms of what order we're actually tackling events. So this could be when they land here, maybe. I foresee two things, by the way. So they're gonna fly directly there. This is where I think they could either, because we're gonna have 6 hours, by the way, seemingly about 6 hours till we get the high wind from the start of the game. So they might either have us go through like the icicle caverns, right, ending with like a tutorial boss fight against Schizo, which is that two-headed dragon thing. I could see them doing that. That would act sort of like the Materia Keeper from the prologue of Rebirth, right? Or they just go straight to the Northern Crater immediately. And you know who ends up actually being like the Materia Keeper, like boss guy? Which is this was to me is kind of crazy.
Together.
Is this motherfucker?
Last time.
Genova Death. That's who this is, by the way.
Stand together.
With a really cool redesign. I actually like they made Genova Death headless, which is like, and that's definitely who this is, by the way.
One last.
And the funny thing is, they're actually inside. There's some stuff here where I'm almost worried for fighting her earlier, because we're actually fighting her inside of like a cave here. It seems like maybe the ice cave. But the other thing too is that before you fight Genova Death, you basically get a big revelation of Cloud's past, right? This is where you even learn and see Zack for like the first time in the OG game. At this point, we know who he is, but Sephiroth shows Cloud and everyone the fires of Nibelheim. And part of me is almost wondering if that's what like this is. Is this like the fires of Nibelheim? Because like the arena seems to have like a flame around it.
And stand together.
See, it's like a fire barrier around it. And that was the motif that the OG had, right? Was that like, you're like in Nibelheim fighting Genova Death after this big revelation of like the town is on fire. So it could just be Genova doing fire attacks, but I also think it could potentially be like after the revelation of what was going on with Cloud. Either way, I think that Genova Death, regardless, even if it's like we fight Schizo before this, who is absolutely being renamed, by the way, that there's no way they're calling that monster Schizo again. I think we're fighting Genova Death actually early in this game. It's like this is literally like a prologue or chapter 1 boss, which is, it's sort of insane to think. Like, you think this would be a major one. Also, look at everyone's HP values, by the way. It's sort of like, bro, look back here. When you look at everyone's levels, like, you might be like, holy shit, wow, that looks like we're already really high. Look, dude, look how big this shit gets. He's level 74. He's already above the cap for what he is in the end of Rebirth. Rebirth, you can only get up to level 70. You get to level 70 fucking 4. I think it might start this game where we have a decent amount of health. And here's the other thing too. My other theories around how this could work. They could start this like they do with the prologue of Rebirth, where we get a bunch of powered up materia. That's actually pretty good, right? And it would make sense that after the last game, and we're heading to the Northern Crater, maybe about to go fight some dank shit like Genova Death, that we would have some powerful materia. What happens after that, though? Well, we get captured by Shinra and taken to Junon. What if we basically have some powerful materia, then we lose it all when we get captured? And then we're back to starting at square one again. That's why I sort of think they might end up doing that way. Because here's why does that matter? Because to me, it seems odd that we would go to the Northern Crater and we would have some starting materia at like level 1, and then we'd fight Genova Death. And some reason my regular fire and ice spells are just, man, yeah, fuck you, Genova. Eat shit, you dumb bitch. Yeah, I know how in the last 2 fights I needed like really powerful shit to kick your ass, but all I really need is the easy shit, bitch. Woo! You know, it's like, that seems to me, again, suspension of disbelief is a video game, I know. But it would seem a little weird, right? If they did it that way. And the thing was, they did the same thing in Rebirth. For the prologue, we got a bunch of powerful shit as both Cloud and Sephiroth. But it was a prologue from seemingly like 6 years ago or some shit. So this time I think they could actually do it that way, where we just start off with like, yeah, we actually have some pretty good, maybe not maxed out materia, but maybe like mostly maxed out materia. And this is our way of One, introducing us in a relatively powerful state so we can get a grasp of all the characters and their moves, because now we have a fuck ton of characters, dude. There's so many fucking characters we're gonna have at the start of this game, while still making us feel like, oh yeah, we're rightfully powerful to fight when fighting Genova Death here, right? And then we lose it all. And now we have to work our way back up again. That just seems right to me. That feels right to me. Oh, no, dude, I think we are for certain fighting Genova Death at the start. Like, this is in the ice caverns, dude.
Time.
I mean, we could, maybe you say like, oh, we saved this for like the return, right? We're coming back here. I'm going to be honest though, man. I think everything that we are seeing in this trailer is within the first 10 hours of the game. Like, we're seeing this and thinking, oh my God, the shit they're showing us is fucking crazy. Whoa. Bro, they've already talked about all this shit with the weapons being out here. They are apparently just going to be there right at the beginning of the game. Like, the weapons will just be there. You could literally go fight like Ruby right at the start or something and get fucked up. They're just going to be there. After you get the high wind, they're just going to be standing out there. And you can go in and get your shit kicked in. That's what the Hamaguchi team have already talked about. Like, Ruby is like, I think all this shit is from the beginning of the game. Like, they're just chilling. And that's what's so crazy. And that's what makes me excited. Because again, you think to yourself, oh my God, how could they show this off so early? How can they do this? It's such a climactic thing. They're just going to do it at the start. Yeah. So what the fuck are they hiding from us? What are they not showing? If this is the literal inciting incident of the entire game, then what does that mean they're not showing? What are they actually building towards? Yeah, bitch. They're building to something. Repairing Cloud's mind, yes, of course. But what I'm trying to say is I think there's way more than just, like, we're not even considering, right? Like, they're gonna get the story beats, right? Everything except for Bone Village is basically making it into the game. There's still so much that they haven't shown us, man. I think there's stuff that is gonna be like genuinely new, things that are tied to why this remake series exists at all, right? That break the regular OG's continuity. That's what I firmly believe. That is what's not being shown. All the stuff we're seeing here is basically stuff that we expect to be here, just in a weird order. So that's my crazy theory, guys. That's what I think, is that I believe that the beginning of this game, especially maybe even the prologue of the game, assuming that we don't get like a weird young Sephiroth or some wacky shit, is going to be us going to the Northern Crater. And I think we're going to fight Genova Death there. I think we're going to confront Sephiroth, because guess what? That's exactly what this scene is right here.
One man sought dominion through reunion by his will.
This scene is literally at the start of the game, I think. This is where Cloud is essentially going to get taken by Sephiroth.
A star fell.
This moment. And then he's going to summon Meteor.
A meteor called...
So. Yeah. Fuck, dude. I'm so excited. So exciting, dude. So anyway, that was my crazy theory. And everyone I've told this theory to, all the FF7 heads at dinner and at like people at Summer Game Fest, they all think I'm right. And here's the other thing too. They've almost, like, at this point sort of confirmed it. There was an interview where Hamaguchi said this, and huge thanks to Subtext for essentially finding this. There it is. He said this. So, cut to Square Enix's Los Angeles headquarters on Monday afternoon. When I meet him brandishing my suitcase, ready to fly home, what was left to say? There is one thing, Hamaguchi says, when I ask him to spill a new revelation for VGC. What I'm about to talk about right now, I don't think I've discussed too much with the media before. A lot of people have asked me when players will be able to access the Highwind ship in the game. And each time I was asked, I would either say 4 to 5 hours or 5 to 6 hours into the game, because it kind of depends on the player. And when I say that, I think a lot of fans are probably wondering if it's truly possible to fit all the story segments from after the end of Rebirth. Because if you apply that to the original storyline, where the party goes to the Icicle area and then the Northern Cave, some might be skeptical if it's possible to fit that within a 4 to 5 hour range. So this part, I don't think I've talked about it too much before, but the way the introduction of FF7 Revelation plays out, I think we were able to come up with a pretty interesting story beat. The entire story sequence where the party gains access to the Highwind. I think the way it plays out is going to be pretty fun for the fans and might be pretty dramatic. So I hope they look forward to that aspect of the game. I think I'm right on the money, man.